wanted to find out where you're at the moment with Peterson, because obviously the Daily Wire, and then his position on Israel, you've like been critical of and stuff, and I was just wondering, where do you stand with that? Because you did a thing with Vosh about him being a net positive.
Yeah.
But have you changed your opinion on that, or?
No. So I think that Peterson's philosophy, laid out in Maps of Meaning, is extremely useful. It's the basis of enlightened centrism in many ways. And I see all kinds of convergences in separate areas on stuff that, he kind of talks about. And so that alone, I think, is positive beyond calculation. I do think he is. He himself says he's very agreeable. He has a hard time being disagreeable. I think he is at the Daily Wire and is sort of captured by the culture there. For example, he had dinner with Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yeah.
There's a video of him and Ben Shapiro and Netanyahu getting dinner. I think Peterson is not disagreeable enough to say to Ben Shapiro, hey, Ben, fuck this Benjamin Netanyahu guy. He's a fucking war criminal. Literally, the arrest warrants have been issued. And maybe we should stop supporting someone who is so fucking degenerate enough to support the Israeli settlers. I don't think Peterson feels like he can do that without backstabbing his friends. Yeah.
I would say it's interesting. So with the situation with Ben Shapiro, Netanyahu, and Peterson, is there any more information on that? Is there like a weird sort of alignment there, or is it just this sort of this dinner that happened?
Well, and I think so first off, I don't think Peterson, I mean, he's tweeting about, let's flatten Gaza and all this fucking shit or whatever. I don't know if he said that specifically, but he said stuff that's very much in that.
Yeah, he said, give him hell, didn't he?
Give him hell and all that shit. And I think he is just so blind to the Palestinian grievances, particularly as it relates to the settlers. And I think part of the reason he's blind to that is because Ben Shapiro wrote essays about why settlements are good. Like, Ben Shapiro was pro-settler. Now, I have yet to hear what his opinions are on the current settlers, but he's a religious Jew, and a lot of religious Jews, not all, certainly not all Jews, and certainly not all religious Jews, but a lot of religious Jews believe that Judea and Samaria and Greater Israel is entitled to them because God and their magical book said so. And I think Peterson is not pushing back against them because he's friends with them.
It's just interesting where I stand, because obviously most people come to the sort of this type of thinking through Peterson, and then to see him do stuff, it's really that thing where you're trying to balance how you view someone that you admire, and then sort of balance that whole thing. Just gonna follow up on the ARC project that Peterson was doing, and whether that was a sort of enlightened centrist sort of project you felt, because it has Bjorn Lomborg and
I thought it was. Yeah. It's a bit more conservative than I anticipated. I believe Mike Johnson, who's the Speaker of the House, who is
it leans Christian. It leans
and you could make the case that it's a counterbalance to the WEF, and it could potentially be a net positive. Sure, yeah, I have less hope for it than I did initially, because it's just I think Peterson has lost the way a decent amount, again, with just being too much of a Zionist shill. I say that in half jest, but if he's not going to criticize the settlers, then he's not serious about the issue, as far as I'm concerned. So I think ARC is just going to devolve into kind of a typical conservative institution, and fair enough. Maybe we need that. So it's hard to say.
Yeah, I went to one of the conference in London, not as a member, but just as a audience member.
Yeah,
and it had a nice atmosphere. It definitely had a good atmosphere.
Good.
Alliance of Responsible Citizenship is hardly a bad title for
sure. Yeah.
But I know what you mean. it just depends how it's sort of hopefully not co-opted or.
Did anything come out of that? You said you went as a viewer. Did they say like was there some sort of call to action at the end of it? Like, all right, now we've all met each other.
Yeah, it was a panel thing, and it was Peterson, Bjorn Longberg, who's talking about like the 12 steps of like, you know, a better planet, like the economically better ways of solving the environmental issue. And then yeah, it was just Peterson did a speech at the end, sort of just like, I think it's on YouTube, where it's just sort of like onwards and upwards, struggling uphill, and it was like a, you know, pretty decent standing ovation, like 12,000 people in O2 Arena, all wearing suits, you know. And it was like, and also 50-50 girls and guys. It wasn't sort of like all male incels or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought it was a really like uplifting thing, and it's just difficult to sort of balance this whole thing. I also just lastly, I just wanted to quickly ask, Alex O'Connor and Destiny, and like all these sort of you know, obviously up and coming YouTubers and stuff. I was wondering. If you ever had the chance to interview Peterson, how would you approach that? Would it be with reverence, or would it be, you know, debate, critical? How would you do that?
Yeah, I don't know. It would depend on if he's seen me call him a Zionist shill constantly. That might color the discussion. I've been asked that before. What would I talk to Peterson or ask Peterson about? It would be very specific things. I think it would be specifically about truth. In that, for example, one of his tenets is you need to be a monster to defeat the monster, right? You have to integrate your shadow. And he talks about truth being sort of the highest value. And I would ask him, like, is part of being a monster being willing to sacrifice the truth? Because to be a monster is to like embrace your inner psychopath, which presumably means all the worst things, including lying. So it's like, well, you should never lie, right? Never lie and tell the truth. Or what is it? Tell the truth and at least don't lie. But isn't part of being a monster being willing to lie? And the example I use is like an undercover cop. Like an undercover cop is built on deceit, right? But he's doing it for the greater good. So how does Peterson square that? That would be something I would be curious to hear. Because it's just like it's taking these moral axioms and putting it to their limits. So that's something I'd ask him.